Susan Day's life at 75 is utterly heartbreaking. See her today. I always thought Susan Day simply disappeared. Then I started looking closer, and the story became much sadder than I expected. Because sometimes the people who walk away from Hollywood aren't running from failure, they're escaping the cost of success. For millions of Americans, Susan Day will always be Laurie Partridge, the quiet, beautiful daughter sitting behind the keyboard on The Partridge Family. She looked like someone who had everything figured out. But appearances can be painfully misleading. Long before she became one of television's biggest young stars, Susan had already experienced a heartbreak that quietly shaped the rest of her life. She was born on December 10, 1952, in Pekin, Illinois, to Robert and Ruth Day. Her father worked as a journalist, while her mother was a nurse. It sounded like an ordinary American childhood. Then everything changed. When Susan was just 8 years old, her mother died. I don't think we always appreciate how much a loss like that can affect someone. At 8, you're old enough to remember everything, but too young to understand any of it. Friends later described Susan as becoming quieter after her mother's death, almost as if she learned to keep every feeling locked inside. That silence would eventually become part of her public image. Ironically, it was a single photograph that opened the door to Hollywood. At 15, her stepmother submitted Susan's picture to a New York modeling agency. She wasn't chasing celebrity. In fact, by most accounts, she was shy and uncomfortable being the center of attention. But cameras loved her. Magazine covers followed. Teen advertisements followed. And before long, executives at ABC noticed something unusual. Susan wasn't a trained actress. She barely had any experience at all. Yet during auditions, she didn't overact or try too hard. She simply felt real. Sometimes that's exactly what casting directors are looking for. At just 17, Susan landed the role that would change her life forever. The Partridge Family exploded almost overnight after premiering in 1970. Suddenly, America knew her face. Fan magazines couldn't print enough photos. Young girls copied her hairstyle. Viewers saw Laurie Partridge as calm, dependable, almost perfect. The problem was, Susan herself didn't feel perfect. Not even close. Behind the scenes, the pressure became overwhelming. Long filming days blended into interviews, publicity events, and endless attention from fans. Imagine still trying to figure out who you are, while millions of strangers already think they know you. That pressure slowly turned inward. Susan later admitted she developed anorexia during those years. Modeling had already convinced her appearance mattered. Television magnified that belief until food became something to fear rather than enjoy. It's heartbreaking because audiences were praising her beauty at the exact moment she was privately struggling to survive those expectations. And there was another pain that no one watching the show could see: David Cassidy. On television, they played brother and sister. Off camera, Susan developed genuine feelings for him. She trusted him during one of the most confusing periods of her life. But David didn't return those feelings the way she hoped. Later, Shirley Jones openly said Susan's heart had been broken. What surprises me is that they still had to work together every day. Imagine trying to hide heartbreak while cameras were rolling.